Back at it tonight as they open a series against the Giants at American Family Field. Milwaukee does so, holding the only double-digit division lead in the majors right now with a 10-game advantage on the Cubs. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
It's a unique deal in regards to the timing of our game, being that it's on a Friday. They'll be off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then we'll bring them back in Wednesday and we'll get together.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Same comment from Matt LaFleur in the intros yesterday, just describing his team's schedule. I believe that was from Saturday. It was either before or after the Ravens game. I guess it doesn't really matter if it was before or after. I think it was after. Basically saying, okay, got the final preseason game in the books. Roster cut downs on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Time. So 52 or an hour and 2 minutes ago. Math is not. Look, I work in radio. Okay. 62 minutes ago, not 52 minutes ago. So what's the schedule? What's the plan? And Matt LaFleur, in classic football coach fashion, gets bent out of shape. It's like, well, we got to play next Friday. So that's a little weird for us. But we'll be off Monday, Tuesday, teams back Wednesday. I would assume the same as every team, maybe a day early. But now we know what 53 players will be back tomorrow. Cuts are done. Rosters are down from 90 to 53. There'll be a little movement at the bottom of these rosters, as I've been trying to explain the last 2 days. Won't be a ton, will be a little. Practice squads will be set, but we know the 53-man rosters and which players, for the most part, will be reporting tomorrow. And for thousands of players, or hundreds of players at least, I don't know exactly, around football, their playing careers are probably over. I've always found it a little odd that play-by-play announcers and football reporters this time of year, they love hitting that concept. They love getting at that. Like on Saturday, I'm listening to Kevin Harlan and John Kuhn or McCarron and Wayne Larrivee on the radio, and they're like, and for so many of these young men, this will be the last time they put on that jersey. It's like, Jesus, it's always so much. It's like, and today a lifelong dream will come crashing down. It's like, geez, okay. They will probably never do anything this exciting in their life. Imagine that at 22 years old, peaking. It's like, gee, we get it. Jeez. They always bang that drum to death. And it's kind of funny, but it's also a little dark as a lot of these players' careers now come to an end. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Look, I never do this. I never call my shot like this. This is going to be electric for the next 2 hours because we can react to the Packers 53-man roster. There are a lot of decisions with certain players that I think have bigger picture discussions, like, oh, Anders Carlson's not on the team anymore. We learned that this morning. Yeah, but it is about more than Anders Carlson. It's about the process of picking that player, trying to develop that player, where we go now. Like, there's a lot to talk about with just Anders Carlson. And a lot of these players that either made or just barely missed out on the 53-man roster. Tonight's show is going to, I don't mean to oversell it, but I just know this show is going to rip. So you are in the right place. I'll start taking phone calls in about 8 minutes if you're ready. Last night, we were reacting to the trade for Malik Willis. The phones were buzzing. It felt like football season again. And now that we know who's been cut, who made the roster, I want to keep taking calls. I want to be hot take, shock jock, sports talk radio tonight. I am amped. So I'll come to you in about 5 to 8 minutes if you're ready. 608-321-1670. Bart Winkler, the Infinity Sports Network, is going to join us at the bottom of this hour at 4:30 to talk about some of these roster cuts and what they mean for the Packers' bigger picture. Again, I'm not breaking down Anthony Johnson Jr. film and the difference between him and Zane. That's not what we're doing. But we'll talk about who made the roster, who didn't, and what it means, right, for the team and for the way that they operate. 608-321-1670 is the number to call. I'd love to have you. You can text that number as well. You can tweet me at Wisco Grant or comment on the live stream. I'll do my best to watch it today because I want this to be a big sounding board for Packers fans and how we feel about some of these decisions and some of these players that have now made or didn't make the roster for the 2024 team. Let's start with maybe a couple of the surprises. None of these decisions truly shocked me, and I'm not going to read to you the whole 53-man roster, but a couple players that were on the bubble that didn't make it, or a player that a lot of people thought would make it. A lot of people on Twitter seemed very surprised that the Packers kept Zane Anderson over Anthony Johnson Jr. Anthony Johnson Jr. had made some nice plays, flying around everywhere in preseason. He seemed like, at least reading the reaction of many Packers people, he seemed like a guy we all thought was going to make the roster. People are surprised. That seems to be the one genuine surprise or shock, even I might say, that he didn't make the roster. So Anthony Johnson Jr. did not make it. Two names that I was watching: Christian Welch, who's had a really, really good preseason. He was everywhere on Saturday. He didn't make the cut. Grant Dubose was another player, the bottom of the wide receiver position, right? Would they keep 6? Would they keep 7? I always kind of thought it would be 6, maybe 7, although I don't think they've kept 7 since one of those years with McCarthy. It's been a while since they've kept 7. And I thought between Malik Heath, Bo Melton, Grant Dubose, maybe Dubose gets the nod over Melton or Heath. Heath was one of the first players we learned about this morning. He made it. And then Bo Melton ends up making it. So Grant Dubose is the last man. He's that 7th wide receiver left off the roster. Not shocked. I'm not shocked that Welch didn't make it. I figured he was on the bubble, but I thought maybe he's performed pretty well. Could have been a special teams guy and seemed to, I don't know, apply himself pretty well on defense, at least on Saturday. It's one preseason game, and that's why preseason games can be a little much. Training camp can be a little much. Sometimes you put a little bit too much weight into some of these practices and some of these performances in the preseason. Grant Dubose, I thought, maybe fits the Packers wide receiver archetype a little bit better than Bo Melton, but he, in his final preseason game, looked pretty good, and he performed well for them in actual NFL games down the stretch last year. So not shocked that Dubose and that Christian Welch didn't make it. Anthony Johnson Jr. is interesting, but I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm shocked and appalled that a safety on the bubble didn't make it, because when you say, hey, Packers safeties, I say, well, Xavier McKinney, they just gave him about $70 million. They just drafted Javon Bullard and Evan Williams. Javon Bullard was a 2nd-round pick who's impressed. Evan Williams out of Oregon was the 4th-round pick. He's really impressed in both camp and in the game so far in the preseason. Keyshawn Nixon, another player who's kind of a safety, slot corner, move around, back end of the defense guy. If I can mention 4 safeties easily before Anthony Johnson Jr., I think Anthony Johnson Jr. had a good case to be the 5th best safety, but are we really going to be shocked and appalled that the 5th or 6th best safety didn't make it? I do question Zane Anderson. Why? Why did they make that choice? Because when you get to the bottom of position groups, you start thinking and talking about special teams. Maybe did the Packers prefer Zane Anderson on special teams to what Anthony Johnson Jr. could provide on special teams? I don't know. These are the things that you have to think about at the very bottom of these position groups. If you're the 5th safety on the roster, you got to be able to do more than just play safety. And maybe that went into the decision-making. Who knows? We'll talk more about that. We can parse that out. Grant Dubose and Welch, 2 names that I'm interested to watch now in the next couple of hours, because I think the Packers would probably love to have both of those guys back on the practice squad. Just couldn't quite make it on the roster. Not shocked, not upset about it. Just 2 names that I had my eye on. Thought maybe, but didn't quite make it. I would assume, were some of the last names that just missed out. Huge developments at running back. Massive developments at running back in the last hour and a half or so. We learned 2 things. We learned that AJ Dillon has been placed on IR with no designation to return. His season's done before it begins. Literally before his season begins, his season is over. We can have some longer conversations. If you have AJ Dillon thoughts, I have some. Maybe that's something we can go back and forth on the phones as the show goes along, or, you can comment, you can text, you can tweet in. AJ Dillon, the dude was a 2nd-round pick. We talk about him now like he's almost a modern fullback, like the short yardage back. That's not what he was drafted to be. He wasn't drafted to be a specialty player. He was drafted with the idea you can be a feature back when Jamal Williams leaves, or maybe one day when Aaron Jones leaves. Well, both of those guys now have left, and A.J. Dillon still, now because of his health, but last year when he was healthy, it's not like he really impressed. Now, Marshawn Lloyd being healthy, he made the 53. He's not starting the year on IR, designated to return, possibly after 4 games, which we have to then assume that he'll be ready at some point in the next couple of weeks, which wasn't a given. I don't know if it'll mean week 1, but it could mean week 2, 3, 4. Maybe it's 5 or 6. I don't know. But the Packers feel confident enough about his health that he'll be back sooner rather than later. Otherwise, they would have designated him and put him on IR. Then they could have bought an extra, roster spot in the meantime. That's a big deal. Last year, the Packers running back spot was shaky. It was Aaron Jones, and then, a lot of, and I love Aaron Jones the same way that I love Josh Jacobs. And I think a big reason why the Packers moved off of Aaron Jones and went to Josh Jacobs is they feel better about his sturdiness, right? His durability as a number 1 back. better about Jacobs than they do about Aaron Jones at age 30. Josh Jacobs is just 26. So that part of the running back room has improved. I don't know if Josh Jacobs is a better back. I think he's a different back. I think they're both excellent. I think when you consider the ages and the durability now at their current ages, I think the Packers upgraded. I feel more confident about the running back room this year than I did last year. The second, third, fourth string, I feel no better about. Now, Emmanuel Wilson, maybe he got a little bit better. And if he got a little bit better from last year to this year, all right, there's marginal improvement. But I thought AJ Dillon maybe would be in a better spot this year. He's not even going to play. And Marshawn Lloyd, who they spent a third-round pick on, won't be ready. Now, the fact that he's not starting the season on IR is a good thing. But who knows when he'll be ready and when he's ready if he'll look good. Because when he was healthy in camp, he didn't look good. But prefer him to be healthy. That's good news. AJ Dillon's season ending. That's a hit for a running back room that was shallow last year. It didn't get any deeper. The lead dog, again, I feel better about the lead dog staying healthy, and I feel better about not needing to use depth, maybe like they did last year. But Matt LaFleur wants to rotate guys. He doesn't want to have a bell cow back. But that's a significant development that Lloyd is going to be healthy at least before that 4-week mark. We could assume, otherwise they would have put him on injured reserve, designated to return. So massive movement at running back. That's really important. Lastly, and then I want to get to the phone, 608-321-1670. This morning, Anders Carlson was released. I don't have much to say about Anders Carlson, the player. You can't hit 31-yarders. If I can't trust you to hit 31-yarders, you can't be my kicker. We can talk about, well, he hit 80% of his kicks, and Crosby for his career, he only hit 80% of his kicks. When you put it into perspective, if you can't hit a 31-yarder, you can't be my kicker. Plain and simple, okay? I am more interested in the machinations behind Anders Carlson, the strategy of picking him, why him over other kickers. If you want to talk about whether or not kickers and specialists should be drafted, we can do that. It doesn't really get my motor running, but I know it does for some others, so I want to make sure you have an outlet to discuss that and talk about that if you'd like. I also think we should probably talk about Rich Bisaccia. He's the $1 million man. Not actually. He's getting a lot more than $1 million every year. He's making a ton of money. He's the league's top paid special teams coordinator. He liked Carlson. He wanted that guy. He wasn't the most accurate kicker in college. Bisaccia, I assume, then behind closed doors was like, no. I can develop him. I can coach him up. And he didn't. He got no better from last year to this year. If Anders Carlson would have improved 15% from last year to this year, he'd be on this roster. The Packers did not want to make this move. And Anders Carlson left them no choice. So I think Rich Bisaccia, we need to take a look at the job he's doing. It's like, man, I understand. You're the associate head coach. You're a veteran coach. You carry a lot of weight. You have a voice. You connect with players. That's all good. But the special teams, I don't know. And let's not act like the Packers haven't made personnel decisions and allocated resources to special teams on behalf of Rich Bisaccia. They have the last couple of years. And I think the bottom of the safety position, keeping somebody over someone like Anthony Johnson Jr., I think that's a nod to Rich Bisaccia's special teams group. They are helping him. They are allocating resources for him, and yet I'm underwhelmed with his units. Oh, yeah, and again, he's making a pile of money. I have concerns about what's going on there. I do. And I'm not saying that Rich Bisaccia should have turned Anders Carlson into, prime Adam Vinatieri, but could I see a 5, 10, 15% improvement in development from year 1 to year 2? No, because if we would have seen that, he'd be on the team, and he's not. Let's take some calls. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Hello, who's this?
It's Darnell.
Hey, Darnell, what's up?
Hey, so here's a little bit of a hot take for you. I think Anders Carlson's going to have like a 10-year NFL career.
That's why the Packers also didn't want to move off of him. Because you don't want to move off the kicker and then have the kicker go have a great career and be really productive somewhere else.
Yeah, but I think he will. I think he's got the tools. He's got to put it together. And I think that you can't have a kicker as a project, and that was their issue.
Okay.
Right? So I think he's got the tools to be a good kicker, just isn't there yet. And that's just tough to be in the Packers position and have that be the case.
Well, if he has the tools, Rich Bisaccia, of all people, he's top dog. He's top special teams dog in the NFL. If he can't unlock those tools and if he can't bring them along, what does that say about Rich Bisaccia if he goes somewhere else and all of a sudden he figures it out and develops as a kicker?
Well, that doesn't say a whole lot about Rich, does it?
That's my point. It was a leading question. It was not a fair, unbiased question. Yeah. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I got you. But first off, I do think that Anders is going to end up having. He's got the what does Colin Cowherd always say? He's got the football name, right? His older brother is already a kicker in the league.
Pedigree.
It's in his blood, right?
Yeah.
That's what Cowherd would say.
Bloodline.
But anyways, I think that move just kind of that's such a Packer move, right? Like other teams, I feel like would hold on to that player because that's our guy, or like, and the Packers, like, they're so much more of a business than some other teams. Like Rodgers hated it, right? He's like, oh, I hate how they dealt with Jordy and how they dealt with Charles Woodson. But like the Packers are an organization that says when you suck or you're not doing what we're paying you to do, you're gone. And
Okay.
I kind of like that, honestly.
I do too. I like that. We can talk more about that, Darnell. We got loaded phone lines, and I want to get to everybody. You lost me a little bit when comparing Anders Carlson to Charles Woodson. I should hope a lot of teams would move off a kicker who's no good. I get what you're saying. I'm glad the Packers did this too, because he can't hit a 30-yarder. I don't want him kicking for my team if I can't trust him to hit a 30-yarder. We need to hone that take a little bit, because I don't know if Anders Carlson, Charles Woodson, I'm failing to see the connection, but maybe we find it throughout the week. Darnell, I know we'll talk again. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, you are fired up today. Your words per minute as a host is off the chart.
Well, we only got 2 hours to do this. We got a guest. It's football season. The phones were hopping last night. I want to keep that going.
Hell yeah. What a day. What a day. I love cut day. Well, it's sad for a lot of guys, but it's just a lot of news. I love it for the purposes of Sports Talk Radio.
Great content.
I think you're nailing it with this Bisaccia stuff. I mean, this guy, and I get it, I've been clowned for 2 years saying Joe Barry's not the worst coordinator on the Packers staff. I was clowned initially by saying Matt LaFleur can't hire coordinators. And I'm really interested to see what happens this year, man, because Bisaccia, what did they rank last year? 25th in special teams. He's the highest paid. And I get it, the kicker's only one part of that. Coverage, all that goes into it. That's going to be a major question mark.
Okay.
Fine.
Fine. If your special teams are ranked 25th, but you can develop a kicker, all right. There. I see the value, right? I see the utility.
Yep.
Or if the kickoff coverages and the punts, it was unique, and you were getting value there, but you couldn't develop the kicker. Okay, but we're getting neither from Bisaccia. I got to get something, and I don't know that we're getting anything right now. In the special teams department. Let me say that. I think he's providing value elsewhere. I don't see it in the special teams department.
Yeah, and what we're seeing value elsewhere, who knows, right? He's there primarily to do special teams. That's first and foremost his job. Now, the other thing that I think is fun for our community, for the Wisco Sports Show and the sports color community, is we make a lot of hay with these conversations about backup quarterbacks and kickers and running backs. Isn't it fun today to see it all culminate to those conversations were worth having? Those conversations were happening not just on sports talk radio platforms, but they were happening back in the room where it happened, right? I mean, these guys were going to town. We've got Malik Willis out of nowhere. We've got Greg the Leg kicking for us all season. And we've got Marshawn Lloyd starting with an injured hamstring as our backup running back, and maybe Wilson. I don't know, man. I feel bad about running back still. I feel a little bit better about backup quarterback. In the kicker situation, man, we are going to be riding the rail all season long on that baby. So
that rips. Hell yeah.
It'll be fun.
It will be fun, Vagabond John. And I got to get a break in. It's not something that I considered like, the conversations that we had on this show were actually worth having. And what I do for work and how we spend 2 hours every night isn't a complete and total waste of time. Like, that's a good feeling. If you're on hold, I promise, stay there 3 minutes. I will get to you in 3 minutes and 20 seconds. It's the Wisco Sports Show. More of your thoughts next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
The Wisco Sports Show. We're about 15 minutes away, not even. 10, 11, 12 minutes away from Bart Winkler, the Infinity Sports Network. My fellow Packers shareholder as well, going to react with us to some of these roster decisions and some of the big picture conversations that stem from these roster decisions. I'm going to get to the phones here in 20 seconds just to give you a very quick and efficient recap of my takes so far. I'm not shocked by any of the roster decisions. Anthony Johnson Jr. getting cut for the sake of Zane Anderson is a little surprising, but I think that's another resource. That's another nod to Rich Bisaccia's special teams. And I'm a little peeved at Rich Bisaccia because he couldn't improve Anders Carlson even a little bit. Not even a little, not even 15, 20%. That would have been enough for him to stick as the kicker this year. He couldn't even do that. So as I was discussing a little bit with some callers, like, man, he's making money hand over fists. He got the kicker that he wanted. He gets all the resources that he wanted, and I'm still underwhelmed. Also, AJ Dillon's season is over, and Marshawn Lloyd is starting the year not on injured reserve, which is a good thing. The Marshawn Lloyd part, not the AJ Dillon part sucks, but the Marshawn Lloyd part, that was a pleasant surprise of today. Right back to the phone, 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant.
Cone.
How the tables have turned on your viewpoint of Anders Carlson.
Wait. In what way?
You know, I heard you on a podcast with your next guest, Bart Winkler, about a week ago saying, you know, Anders isn't getting cut. There's not going to be a scenario this year where he loses us the playoff game.
Well, now, to be fair, there won't be. I was right about that last part. Because, Cone, would you disagree with me on this? This was such a winnable job for Anders Carlson. Greg Joseph stunk, and Alex Hale stunk. All he had to do was be a fraction better than he was last year, and he couldn't even do that. That's it. It just goes to show you how disappointing he was in camp and in the preseason.
Yeah, 100% agree. But you were one of the ones on the radio landscape, you know, carrying water for this guy.
I was carrying water to move away from Mason Crosby. Anders Carlson was simply the vessel to allow me to communicate that. Whoever. Now they can use whatever kicker they want as long as it's not Mason Crosby. We need to get that out of our mind.
I'm still in the Mason camp. You know, God. Adam Vinatieri did his whole career. Why can't Mason? So, all right. We'll see. Running back, you know, I was just looking online. Still a decent amount of good backup running backs they could sign. I like Melvin Gordon, you know, a little Badger connection. I think we should make that happen because I don't trust this rookie with a bad hamstring. We've seen how that plays out with Christian Watson. We don't need that in our running back room too.
It does concern me, and I just got to get a couple callers in, Cone. I know we'll talk more throughout the week. The hamstring does concern me. It concerns me less that he's not on IR, but only marginally. Tanner Mordecai is available, by the way. He was cut by the Niners, so upgrade from Sean Clifford. If they want him on the practice squad, maybe. Who says no? 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Hot Take Jake.
Hot Take
I mean,
Jake.
Tanner Mordecai, isn't John Stocco available instead?
Well, I think Vagabond John was keeping an active tracker of Badgers in the league just to stick it to Luke Fickell because he just likes pushing back against whatever coach is in power at the time, which I get, but I digress.
Well, you know what, Mr. Bills? I love cut down day because it's one of those things that puts the fanatic in sports. Like, we got a whole day talking about this stuff of dudes that, they made the 53 and then, 8 weeks from now, they're going to be gone, cut for a practice squad guy that we signed from somewhere else that we never heard of. But we talk about it so passionately, God, I pray to God he makes it to our practice squad. And it's just funny to me.
They're going to make it.
But
our cuts are going to make it. I do think Vagabond John had a point when he's like, hey, we pulled our hair out over backup quarterback and kicker, and the Packers made moves at backup quarterback and kicker. So that at least wasn't a waste of time, right?
Yeah, well, and it's a good sign to me that they cut Carlson. Last year, I was furious that they rolled with Carlson, just given the performance he gave in college and in camp. And my thought process was, I thought Green Bay was pretty good, and I was like, this is a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are going to roll with this Carlson kid, they clearly don't see themselves as a playoff team because games come down to field goals more often than not. And you can't rely on a kid like this. You can't, if you're a playoff contender, you can't develop a kicker. You just can't do it. So to me, maybe they really didn't believe that they were a contender last year, and maybe they thought that, the first half of Jordan Love was what we were going to see, so they could afford to try to develop this kicker.
We didn't think the problem is we didn't even think they were a playoff team until December 1st. That's the problem. So by the time they were a playoff team, I mean, it all happened so quickly at the end of the year. It's hard to fault him. What did you want him? Did you want him shopping for kickers in, October under the idea of, well, just in case we get hot, we better have I don't know. It's hard for me to fault the Packers for how they handled kicker last year.
Well, I thought going into the year that they were going to be a playoff team. Then they disappointed me, and then they, did what they did. But you had this sinking feeling in the back of your mind that this is going to come back to bite them, and sure enough, it did. So I'm happy that okay, we have to be serious about this now. Is Joseph that much more of an improvement over Carlson? I don't know, but at least I'm not going to be, holding my, I can watch my mouth here.
Holding your what? What were you going to say? What are you holding?
I thought I was on Mr. Winkler's pod for a second.
Well, he's coming up next. He's coming up next.
If he was on with me right now, I might have let that one slip, but.
I mean, what's your point? I got to wrap it up. Let me ask you this to close, because we do have to get to Bart. Are you more comfortable with Greg Joseph on a 35-yarder than you would be with Anders Carlson?
Oh, absolutely. Without question.
I think that's what it comes down to, right, Jake?
Yep. You got to at least have the guy that can give you the gimmies. If you have a guy that misses from 58, okay, that's understandable. But, the ones that are a gimme, and then those are the ones that really, really end up hurting you in the long run.
I think so. And that's a good call. I'm excited to have you in the fold, Hot Take Jake. I'm out of time this segment. I got to get to Bart. So if you're on hold, you can stay there and I'll get to you. It'll just be after the guest, or if you want to call back. I promise in the 5 o'clock hour, we're going to roll through phone calls. So if you do have time tonight to call and you want to get in, I promise I'll get you in. We just got to pause. We're going to get to Bart Winkler, the Infinity Sports Network. He hosts on, I think, most of these affiliates from 9 to 1 every morning. He's a fellow Packers shareholder as well. He will join us next on the Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. We are whipping through phone calls tonight. God, this is great. Football feels like it's back. People are fired up and mad about this, that, and the other thing. It's incredible. Last night, the Malik Willis trade. Never have we gotten more fired up and taken more calls about a pick for a 7th rounder for a quarterback that's probably never going to play. God, it feels good. Feels like football is back. Here to discuss the Packers goings on of the day from the Infinity Sports Network, a fellow Packers shareholder and a longtime contributor to this show. It is Bart Winkler, who joins us now. He's on Twitter at the Bart Winkler Show. Bart, good afternoon. How are you?
Not just is it people are mad about Malik Willis. They were mad that it wasn't Ryan Tannehill.
The wrong
as if
Titans
either matters or is good.
Yeah, I don't know that either is great. I don't know. Let's start with Malik Willis, because it seems to me like the Packers, they're just so against just simply getting a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
In making this move, it's clear they think they need a backup. Clifford and Pratt are not good enough. So they go out and get like an incremental improvement from Clifford and Pratt. And last night I'm going back and forth with callers, and callers are like, well, this is what we do. We draft and develop guy. Yeah, but that hasn't worked. It didn't work with Hundley. It didn't work with Kaiser. It worked once upon a time with Flynn, but I don't know that this is the best way to do it. What do you think of the Willis trade?
Well, Willis, when he was at Liberty, he dominated.
Would you F off?
No, he did.
Go ahead. All right. I didn't think you were serious. Go ahead. Okay.
I watched a lot of those games because I would play him in daily fantasy sports.
Okay.
He'd rack up yards. But then in the draft, people are like, could he be a first round pick? And it was like, no. And they're like, well, what about second? And they're like, no. And then the Titans take him in the third and do the same thing the next year, taking Levis in the second, just taking guys that drop. But to me, this isn't about the Packers identifying a guy that they like and would rather have as their backup quarterback. It's about that they had two guys in Pratt and Clifford that battled each other for the QB2 job and both lost. Like they played themselves out of QB2. Yeah. So the Packers are like, well, I don't know that Malik Willis is any good, but we certainly don't like the guys we have. So get another body in here. I don't like Malik Willis is not going to start games on purpose. He's not going to be a Packers Hall of Famer. He's not probably even going to be on this roster next year, but he is a guy that they have. And I'm with a lot of people in terms of like backup quarterbacks, an important position. Good buddy Chuck Freeman for years, we would do weeks on Brian Hoyer. Mm-hmm. Why don't we get a guy?
Veteran backup. Should we get a veteran backup?
But he was specifically wanting Brian Hoyer. So, but I agree with that. The thing is, though, you need to get a guy. If you're going to find a backup quarterback, find a guy that can get you through 4 games.
Okay.
Anything else, you will be bad. If you need a backup quarterback for more than 4 games, you're toast. So in some way it matters, and in some way it also doesn't. When you pay $55 million for Jordan Love, your starting quarterback, you're invested in what Jordan Love is going to bring to this team. It's not going to be like Jordan Love, something happens in week 5 and you're like, well, that's okay because we're paying $550,000 to Malik Willis.
Yeah. So part of why I love talking Packers with you, and part of why I'm jealous that you get to do national radio, is you get to kind of flex what it means to be a Packers fan on like fan bases that, like, what are you laughing at? You get to flex Packers fandom. And
I just love this whole operation. I love the cryrons or whatever they're called. I love the box. I love the logo. I love it all. I love the comments. I love it all.
I'm having fun with it. I'm jealous of you because you get to go on national radio and act holier than thou. Like, well, Packers fans, I heard you last week ranking like the best times of day to watch your team. And you said 3:30 is the best. And I agree, because you can watch all the noon games and then power down during Sunday Night Football. And your producer was like, but that's when that's when the Raiders and the Cardinals play. It's like, nobody, not if you're a Packer or a Cowboys fan, then you're America's game of the week. And some people look at that. So you speak very well to the identity of a Packers fan and what it means to be an owner.
For better or for worse. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Do we need to reconsider? We're so proud of drafting and developing quarterbacks. We're a quarterback factory. But does that actually help us win? And are we that good at it? Like with Kaiser and with Clifford and with Hundley, are we better than any other team in the NFL with what we did with those guys and what we got out of those guys?
I don't take a lot of pride in drafting and developing quarterbacks if you're not going to play them. Obviously, when Rodgers was drafted, that was a draft and develop. Jordan Love is a draft and develop.
To play.
Yeah. Anything else is just, it makes you sleep a little better at night. Like, Well, gosh. At least we have Ty Detmer. He won a Heisman. So I'm so stoked. Well, we have Mark Brunell. Well, we have all these guys that like succeed other places. And
Hasselbeck. Exactly. What does that get us? Well, Hasselbeck, he started here. It's like, okay, that's great for the Seahawks, and I guess we can.
They called him Mr. August. that doesn't do anything for me. Now, the years that Rodgers was hurt, like Brett Hundley and Seneca Wallace and Scott Tolzien, this was bad. These were not good years. But also, he was hurt long enough where you're not like the Chiefs right now have Carson Wentz. Would that make you feel better? Carson Wentz is a car on the side of the road that's like for sale, $500 OBO, and nobody gives a best offer. It's just, it sits there, then it snows, and then the guy's got to like scrape it so you can put the sign. Nobody wants these guys. How many good backup quarterbacks in the league are there? I would say Aiden O'Connell, because he should be starting, and Michael Penix Jr. Maybe a few more, but I don't know. I haven't to start. Yeah, I haven't thought about this until now.
Like when I'm I'm reconsidering my identity as a Packers fan and what it means. Like, and people say, well, we developed Jordan Love. Yeah, but that was a first-round pick. Like that,
we draft and develop. The thing that sets us apart is we are willing to quote unquote throw away a first-round pick for years to make sure we have the next quarterback. We also don't care about who the guy is behind him. So we will draft guys and we will trade 7th-round picks. And then I see. Well, why didn't we just wait for him to get cut? My brother, in Christ, these are backup quarterbacks.
Yeah.
If Jordan Love gets hurt, the Packers are going to be bad. That's it.
It's reasonable.
The end.
Great sports talk fodder, especially on a show like this. Maybe it doesn't move the needle for a national show.
Oh, man,
like
I talked to my guy Jonathan Peterlin out of Cleveland last night, and I'm like, so what's up with the Browns? He goes, honestly, I don't really have anything for you. Nobody knows. I go, yeah, I don't either. I mean, Deshaun, it's like every question I have, the answer is let's talk in 6 weeks. So we just talk Guardians.
That's actually elite. The Bart Winkler Show, weeknights, 9 to 11 Central or 9 to 1 Central on the Infinity Sports Network. Wouldn't 9 to 11 be perfect? You do 2 hours and you still get to bed before midnight if you want, but he's grinding 4 hours a night. Anders Carlson was cut this morning. I get why they did it. He can't hit a 30-yarder. He can't be my kicker. Oh, okay. Here's what I am bringing, and I think I'm pioneering in the Packers space today. I don't see many other people
going viral with your kickers takes.
Well, I mean, that was just to throw it. That was for clicks. Actual meaningful point. I think we need to talk about the job or the lack of a job that Rich Bisaccia is doing for the money that he's getting. What does he do? You can't. If Anders Carlson would have made a 15% improvement from last year to this year, he'd be our kicker. That's all it would have taken. And this was his guy from the beginning. I know the Carlson family. I'm going to develop him. I think as media people, we need to hold Rich Bisaccia accountable. That's what I'm trying to do today. That's what I'm starting.
Well, it feels like the last few guys that we've brought in is like any kind of coordinator that we've been excited about. Even we were excited about Mike Pettin at one point.
Yeah, he looked like a bulldog. I remember having that conversation with you. That mattered to me.
I think the thing with Bisaccia is, the special teams have not been any better. So I mean, hold him accountable. You're going to be one of these guys, hold him accountable. We need to hold him.
The role of the media?
What are you going to hold him accountable? You're going to yell at him for a segment on a syndicated talk show? That'll put that millionaire in his place.
Wow, some belief you have in the craft that you do every night for work. You don't think the media has value. I didn't go to school for journalism, but my friend Ben Kenny did, and he would always tell me that the role of the media is to ask and answer questions and to hold those in positions of power to account. So that's what I'm doing today. What does he do?
Nope.
That's not what you do?
That was the role of the media before it went into being a for-profit industry, which only now looks for controversy and division.
Oh.
Which you are now adding to as a blue checkmark instigator.
Well, I'm not dividing Packers fans. I'm saying Carlson was his guy. He couldn't. I'm not asking him to turn him into prime Adam Vinatieri, but can I see market improvement from year 1 to year 2? Like you're supposed to.
My real sports point is, and we've talked about this on a podcast called Into the Winklerverse. You can get last week's episode where we talked at length about kickers, you, me, and Paul Imig.
Mm-hmm.
Is that my thought is you can develop quarterbacks. You can develop running backs. These guys get 70 plays a game, and over time you hope to see improvement, and you have a plan there. You can't develop special teamers in games. They barely play. I don't know that there's a job in sports that's like, those like graphs, like amount of time he plays, impact he has.
Yep.
3 kicks decides a game, 3 just strokes of your leg, and then you're missing ones that like Gronk could make during the Super Bowl halftime show, that the Philadelphia field goal kicking garbage can phenomenon guy. You weren't probably alive for that. That was a big deal. Tony Danza movie.
No, I wasn't alive for that. I'm going to ask you more about things I wasn't alive for to wrap up, but continue making your sports point.
The garbage picking, field goal kicking Philadelphia phenomenon. It was an ABC movie on a Sunday night. Tony Danza starred in it. It took over the nation. Yeah. Older people will remember the horse that kicked field goals named Gus. That was a movie.
Not Mr. Ed.
No, it was Gus.
Oh, that was a different horse. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
so basically, you can't develop kickers. If you're trying to develop a kicker, it's too late, is my thought.
Okay. Well, then I don't know. I would like for Rich Bisaccia to show his utility somewhere, some way. And I don't know that we're getting it. The kicker would have been a nice spot, especially because they were connected. He knew that family had a connection with the player. That was kind of his guy. Okay. Lastly, another reason why I wanted to talk to you today, Oasis is reuniting. And we can be brief on this because there's very serious Packers discussions we got to have, and I want to get back to calls, but this is your era, the 90s. This is your wheelhouse. Your take to Oasis reuniting.
Oasis came on very strong. They were also they were very cocky about who they were, but they walk the walk and they talk the talk, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
They had some bangers which still hold up today.
I listened to a little bit today. I agree. Some of those songs, yep, those are still good.
They were a pop band from overseas that a lot of us Yankees over here on this side of the pond thought, well, maybe this is our Beatles. It's the same thing, and they're like close. They're brothers. I mean, how close can you be? And also at the same time, people do forget that the Beatles had released a new song in 1995 called Free as a Bird. And that was being played, because they found like John Lennon's old recording. They just did it again like last year and no one cared.
Yep.
There was a new song that played for like a day and nobody cared. But at the time, it was massive. I was like, oh my God, we got the Beatles back. And so then we kind of had so it was bigger than the Beatles and sort of a Beatles thing. And then they just fell apart. The reason it's held up so much is because, and this is a theory that, sometimes people pass away. Sometimes people just stop making content.
I like this theory. This is what I was going for. Here, this is the clip.
This is the clip. Okay. Let's think about me for a second. I'm on the radio, nationally syndicated. People like barely know. I was cranking out these pods, whatever. But if I just stopped after Chuck and Winkler, I think people remember me in a whole new way. Because they're like, oh, that era of Milwaukee sports radio, it was different, it was unique, and we've never heard anything like it since. But I've continued to put out content, so it's like, okay, now we're seeing Bart, play his 3-chord opera, Neil Diamond kind of track. It's like, okay, the good stuff. If you only work for a little bit of time and your catalog is so classic and epic, you will be regarded better. There's a reason why we don't cherish anybody. There's so many musicians. We should be like, oh my God, we still have these people. Even if they get up there and their voice is not so great, we still have these people. Because the moment they die, we think, oh my God, they were so. Tell your loved ones you love them now.
Yeah.
So Oasis, though, everybody's making the same joke. If there's one concert you need to get insurance on, it's this one because they'll probably screw it up. I got to be honest with you. I'm a little disappointed that they are going to reunite. I think them not being able to solve their differences was part of the charm. And this does, I hate to say that Oasis is selling out, but I'm not sure there's anything in music in the last 25 years that has felt more explicitly like a money grab than this one.
Very quick follow-up, 60 seconds. Did Hell Freezes Over, the Eagles in 94, did it feel like this? Did that feel like a money grab? Or can
I like that one. No, all that was good. All that was good. It's like when I mean, these guys put out new albums. Didn't Bruce put out a new album not too long ago?
I'm the one sports radio person in the world who couldn't give you that answer. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, I'll listen to it the one time, and then it's like, okay, I want to hear Born in the USA again.
Yeah. Well, Nebraska is actually, if you're a real Springsteen fan, that's actually his most poignant and probably touching work. But I can tell you're not a Bruce fan, so that's fine. Bart Winkler, this is great. I can't wait to listen to you tonight. You gonna talk about rosters? What does a national radio host talk about tonight?
Oh, I have a 4-day weekend coming up, so I'm already checked out.
Yeah. I don't like when people ask me, what do you got coming up on the show tomorrow? I'm like, it's not tomorrow yet. I don't know.
It's not tonight. I got 5 hours to prepare for this show.
We'll go prepare.
And I have a producer that I make do more of the work now. That's pretty nice.
You delegate, and that makes for better work-life balance. It's better for everyone involved. Bart, I appreciate you. Thank you. We all look forward to listening to your radio show on the Infinity Sports Network and getting into the Winkler
on these same stations.
Yeah. Yep. These same affiliates.
After the Brewers game.
Thank you, Bart. I appreciate your time. There he goes. Bart Winkler, Infinity Sports Network. I wanted to ask him about Oasis. He's a 90s guy. That's his type of music. I mostly think music from the 90s really isn't that great, but we remember it great, which is why Oasis, it was front of mind, especially talking to Bart today. 3 minutes, we'll come back. We'll get right back into the Packers, quarterbacks, special teams, roster decisions. We'll continue to hit on it all, and I want to get your thoughts. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show continues next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. Got about 2 minutes before we break. We'll get an update from Zach Heilprin and return for another full hour of the Wisco Sports Show. Just enough time to get one call in. There's been one caller waiting. Let me get you in. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. Hey, Oasis
Tony.
is great, man. Why are you bagging on Oasis?
I'm not bagging on Oasis. I wasn't around in the 90s. I listened to some of their stuff today. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is pretty great.
Go to get a jukebox, put it on the speakers, blast it, drink some beer. It's good times, man. Hey, the Packers. I am so glad I'm not going to see AJ Dillon getting a 3rd and 4th and 1 and getting short. I am happy about that. I'm sad for him, but they got to figure out something with the running back. And Cohn mentioned that there's a bunch of guys out there. I don't want Melvin, no Cohen. Cohn, no Melvin Gordon. His days are past. But I got to ask you this, though. Do you think Aaron Jones and Josh Jacobs was the master plan by Goot and it just didn't come through?
I wonder if he thought, well, I can get Josh Jacobs and maybe get Aaron Jones to take a pay cut. Maybe.
Right.
I don't know. That's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. What do you think? Got about 30 seconds.
I think he was actually part of the plan. It just didn't work out. And lastly, surprise cuts, your guy, Grant Dubose, Anthony Johnson. And then you didn't mention Kalen King. I don't know if he's practice squad material or what, but he was doing pretty well, I thought.
Probably. I think for the 7th round pick that he was, I thought he was doing fine with his opportunities that he got. Tony, I appreciate it. We'll talk more later on throughout the week. I think Kalen King, Grant Dubose, you mentioned those two names, top tier candidates for the practice squad. And we'll see. I'd imagine they'll be back because most guys get through. Almost all the guys get through. Hour 2, Wisco Sports Show next. 2 minutes, an update from Zach, no commercials.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the short-lived Anders Carlson era at kicker for the Packers is over as part of the team's moves to get its roster down to 53 players by 3 p.m. today. The team cut the former Auburn kicker, a 6th-round pick back in 2023. Carlson had an up-and-down first year in the NFL, hit 81.8% of his kicks, but was just 7 for 13 beyond 40 yards and missed 5 extra points. This preseason went 3 for 4, but his one miss came from just 32 yards on Saturday against Baltimore. Veteran Greg Joseph is the team's kicker for now. In other moves, the team cut the 2 quarterbacks, Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt, that battled this offseason to be Jordan Love's backup. That move comes a day after the team traded for Tennessee quarterback Malik Willis. Meanwhile, running back AJ Dillon, who's got a neck injury, placed on the season-ending injury reserve. The same goes for tight end Tyler Davis. He has a shoulder injury. Packers will open the season a week from Friday in Brazil against the Eagles. Meanwhile, Wisconsin just 3 days out from their season opener against Western Michigan. Badgers have won every non-conference home opener dating back to 1996. They are 23.5-point favorites on the Broncos. Could be the first time the teams have met since the 2016 Cotton Bowl. A win for the Badgers. Kick on Friday is slated for 8 o'clock.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Brewers are back at it tonight as they open a series against the Giants at American Family Field. Milwaukee does so, holding the only double-digit division lead in the majors right now with a 10-game advantage on the Cubs. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heilprin.
It's a unique deal in regards to the timing of our game, being that it's on a Friday. They'll be off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then we'll bring them back in Wednesday and we'll get together.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
I feel so alive this week. I think I first hinted at this last Friday. I think going into this last weekend, I said it really feels like football again. Like it feels like it's back. It feels like it's legit. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it was the joint practices with the Ravens. I think that was part of it. I don't know if it's just straight up proximity. Like we're just closer. We're now within that 2-week window to when the Packers are actually going to open up their season. I don't know. I'm sure it's a combination of a lot of things. It's starting to feel real. And you know, most of you are rolling your eyes. You know so much how much I love to talk Brewers. But we get to a certain point in the summer, we kind of get the team figured out. We got Murphy figured out. We kind of know who these guys are, and we're just watching and enjoying games. We start to cool off a little bit. God, it just feels great to talk about some sports topics that really get our goat, get us going, and get the phones moving. Like I feel alive the last 2 days. The Malik Willis trade last night, now a couple of roster cuts that are, I don't know if surprising is the word, but Anders Carlson is an impactful roster cut. And I think it leaves me with bigger questions about Rich Bisaccia and how he's operating his unit. And then the Packers today, they release Anthony Johnson Jr. instead of Zane Anderson. It's like, so we're going to continue to feed Rich Bisaccia's special teams resources and not really see great results. Like, I think Anthony Johnson Jr. is better, and he's performed at a higher level and performed more consistently than Zane Anderson, but we got to keep Zane Anderson for special teams. Okay. I say this without any facetiousness. How much help does Rich Bisaccia need before we actually start to see results on that side of the ball? It'd be one thing if the punt and kick game was meh, but he could develop a kicker. But he couldn't. Anders Carlson showed no improvement from last year to this year. If he had, he'd be on the team. He didn't need to be amazing to make this team. He just needed to be slightly better than last year. And Rich Bisaccia, the $1 million man, couldn't get him there. Right? Some actual breaking news. Give me 60 seconds, then we'll get back to the calls. Some significant running back news today. AJ Dillon has been placed on IR with no designation to return. His season's done. It's done. And, if I was a real knob, I could be like, will he ever take a snap for the Packers again? Scratch that. Will he ever play NFL football again? I don't know. It's not a conversation to have today, but he is not a reasonable option. He's not a possible option to talk about as a Packers running back this year. So set him to the side. Marshawn Lloyd, however, is healthy enough to avoid an IL stint or an IR stint to start the year, even designated to return. So the Packers, we can assume, believe he'll be back anytime, but probably before that 4-week mark. Otherwise, they would have put him on IR designated to return, and then they could have bought another roster spot for somebody else in the meantime, right? That's significant. The fact that Marshawn Lloyd is going to be ready to go at some point before a month down the road, before week 4, that's important. That's meaningful, especially now with AJ Dillon's season ending. So right now it's Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd at some point sooner rather than later, and Emmanuel Wilson, who made the roster. And if he just takes a little bit of improvement from last year to this year, I think the backfield is better. But in order for me to feel a lot better about the backfield this year relative to last year, Marshawn Lloyd is going to have to get healthy and perform the way you'd expect a third-round pick running back to perform. All right, back to the calls. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, that was a good running back breakdown. I really appreciate it.
You know what? Thank you, Matt and Cross Plains. I tried to be efficient because I can see you guys sitting on hold, and I just don't want to make you wait.
I thought you were going to break some other news, but that's okay. I knew that news, so it wasn't that much breaking. But yeah, I was just happy to hear Zach Heilprin mention my second place Cubs, 10 games behind the Brewers now.
Did he mention that? I didn't catch that.
And yeah, of course. Yeah, I tried to make Ebo do it as well, but he refused to do it, I think. So, but that's okay. Speaking of the Packers, yeah, this whole quarterback thing is crazy to me. But I think Pratt, right? Pratt, he's going to make the practice squad, obviously, and Clifford, I don't know. I think anybody will pick him up.
No, I don't. I think Clifford and Pratt will both be there to add to the practice squad. I don't think any other team's tripping head over heels to get either guy.
Yeah, so who knows what will happen with that in regards. They might just let Clifford go and maybe making him like a quality offensive assistant coach because that's what he's good at, right? He's not good at quarterback. He's good at coaching people up, I think.
It's shocking. He was so good in college. I can't believe it hasn't translated.
Anyway, yeah, so I don't know about the running back situation and the kicker. I like our running backs, and I don't know if Joseph is going to be the deal. This seems like it's going to be a 1-week tryout for him in Brazil, and if he doesn't miss or whatever, has a good game, then he's going to carry over into the season. Otherwise, we're going to have to grab somebody off the heap, during the season, I think. So. You
think this is going to be week to week, huh? Well,
that's what it feels like.
I guess we don't really have evidence to believe otherwise. You know what I mean? I don't think they didn't want to move off of Anders Carlson. If the Packers had their druthers, Anders Carlson would be the kicker week 1, and he would have improved a little bit from last year, and we wouldn't need to be doing any of this. It's not like Greg Joseph came in and took this kicker battle by the chokehold, Matt. Like he was bad too, relatively bad.
Yeah, I just, like I'll keep saying, I don't understand moving on from Mason Crosby except not wanting to pay him. And
Well, he's old.
Older,
he's old.
Yeah,
he's not older. He's
yeah,
old. He can't kick anymore at a high level.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. I think the last year he kicked for us, he kicked okay. I don't remember.
Yeah, 2 years ago, and then he kicked for the Giants last year, and he couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, I didn't watch enough Giants games, I guess, to see what he hit or missed. So anyway, well, maybe they'll find somebody like a Max Zendejas, if you remember him. You probably don't remember him, but he turned out to be a pretty good kicker. They got off the scrap heap one year as well. So
when was that? Like 87?
Oh my gosh, in the 80s.
Jesus, why would I know that? Who's that for, Matt and Crossplay? That's one of my favorite quotes from Veep. That's also something that very few people will understand. So now I'm doing what I'm, chapping your ass for doing.
I like to think of you as a Packer historian, so you look at the record books and stuff.
Okay, sure.
And you watch the All 22. You know about Chris Jackie.
Well, I know about Chris Jackie, not for anything he did on the field. I notice his presence on social media these days. Big year for him. It's an election year, so he's all over the place.
Yeah, that's one of the only Packers that I have an autograph of. I got his autograph a long, long time ago when he was cut short of tying or breaking Paul Horning's scoring record that they let Mason Crosby beat. So back in the day, he fell 3 points short. But anyway,
speaking of historians,
that's my take on that, and I'm as pumped and full of life as you are because the Cubs won 18-8 yesterday. We got Badger football coming up this Friday. So that's exciting. And then I will be up in La Crosse for the Oktoberfest show that Eagle's putting on.
Oh, you'll be there? I'll be there. So I'll see you there, Matt. That'll be fun.
Indeed. That is the plan. I'm up there Thursday night, going to spend the night and then hang out with you guys on Friday morning and then head back to Madison. I'm
going to be there Thursday night as well. That's Matt and Cross Plains, everybody. Thursday night could be dangerous. I want to get Emo to come tool around the crowd, but he's got to get up early. That's the problem. So I don't know. We have yet to figure out all the moving parts for Oktoberfest, but I look forward to that. Thank you for the call, Matt Cross Plains. I'm not a historian. I am a shareholder. I'm an owner. So I guess that burden is mine to carry. I don't know that I do a great job carrying it. 608-321-1670. One more call, then I'll give you some more of my thoughts. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric on 990.
Eric on 990. Good evening, you son of a gun. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. So I don't know about this Greg Joseph. I never had any confidence, and I don't believe even Zach Heilprin said in his update that he's the kicker for now.
I love how we're all reacting to Zach's update.
Yeah, right. But it is. Everybody's like, well, we think he's the kicker, and we felt the same way last year when he was our kicker. We think he's the kicker.
He made some kicks for you guys. I don't remember Greg Joseph being a liability when he was on the Vikings.
Well, listen, if the whole team is going down the toilet, the kicker's the last guy to worry about.
Sure. Yeah,
right?
Sure.
I mean, this is what I remember, and I watch it, and I kind of hope it goes this way for you, too. You're going to be watching a game, all right? You're going to be intensely watching because you're driving for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to score the touchdown, and you're going to go to the bathroom because it's going to be a commercial break, and you're going to figure out the touchdowns are only 6 points.
And you're going to like, wait, what happened? Yeah, you paint a very clear picture. Football fans all over the country go through this every Sunday. This is actually a great point by you.
Right. It is. And that I just don't know. So, but we're a little bit in Minnesota, we're a little bit gun shy on our kickers. This new guy we got, he's looking pretty good, I think. But you're right, and the whole city of Westby, Wisconsin is sad that Carlson's gone because he's probably the only Norwegian in the whole NFL.
That's true. Representation matters. You know what I mean, Eric? That's a good point.
Right. Every time he kicked a field goal, everybody would wave their little Norwegian flags, and it was kind of neat in a way. So, and I really wish Bart Winkler would be early to listen to him some more. I like him.
You're not out on I-90 at 9 p.m.?
I am not.
You're probably asleep by then. You get up early. You're a working man.
I am sound asleep when he comes in. He's got some really good points. I really like him. Oh, I have to make issue here with, was it Tony from Texas saying he thought that Gutekunst was trying to get Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones? Who said that?
Well, Tony did. I thought his point was, do you think mentally Brian Gutekunst was like, well, maybe we could have them both? I don't know that was his number one plan, but I bet maybe in the back of his mind, he's like, well, maybe Jones takes a pay cut. Maybe. I could see Tony's point. I think it's a long shot, but you can see his point a little bit, right?
If he wanted to do that, I mean, I'm just factoring in what Aaron Jones took to leave the Packers. That would have been pennies on the dollar. I mean, you wouldn't have shortchanged him if that's really what you wanted to do. It would have been an extra $1 million. That's nothing.
Sure. It does seem,
so I don't think that was planned.
And and that's fine, Eric. And I'm glad you brought that back up because that was an interesting point. I appreciate the call. I think the Packers did with Aaron Jones what they've done with a lot of players, where it's like, we're prepared to move on from you. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and also we have pieces in place. We have picks that we're going to make. We have players that we're going to sign. We're ready. We're not even really worried about the money. We're ready to go in another direction. And I think we saw that with Jordy because so many of these Packers have come out and it's like, well, if they had just made me a reasonable offer, I would have been back. But I don't think the Packers wanted him back. That's the thing. It wasn't about money. It was the plan, the steps that we've put in place no longer include you. It's not about the money. We are moving in a different direction. And I think that's probably what happened with Aaron Jones. Probably. But Tony's point was an interesting one. I like interesting points. It's at least an exercise. And here we are talking about Eric. All right, another call. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Gordon in La Crosse.
Gordon. Hey, 2 days in a row. What's up, Gordo?
I was just going to say that I think that Anders Carlson has better upside than Greg Joseph. Because if you look at their stats, their career stats, obviously Anders Carlson's only had 1 year, but Greg Joseph, his career percentage is 80%. Anders Carlson last year was 81.8, I believe. And last year, Greg Joseph was 80%. Greg Joseph, I believe, missed 4 or 5 extra points, and so did Anders Carlson. Overall, their stats are about the same. I just think Anders Carlson has better upside because he's a rookie and you still have time to develop. So I think cutting someone that you already know, he's an 80% kicker, he's going to miss some extra points. His 40 to 50 is about the same as Anders Carlson's. Like, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know why. We're not getting better at the kicker position. In my opinion, we're getting a lot worse.
So, or let me.
Or not a lot worse.
No. I was going to say, they're staying the same, but also minimizing future upside. I think that's the point you're making, right?
Yeah, and kind of minimizing, I guess, downside to a certain degree because you already know what you have with Joseph. He's an 80% kicker. He can make a kick if you need it, but, I mean, he could also be like Carlson and miss a kick when you really need it.
This is probably, and Gordon, I see what you're saying, and I'll continue to go down this road with you, and I appreciate the call. This is probably a floor-raising, ceiling-lowering move. Ceiling-maintaining. What they did was they got a little sturdier with Greg Joseph. I think the Packers believe that Greg Joseph can hit a 31-yarder. Like, they think they can count on him for the gimmies and the extra points. Now, maybe he's not going to turn into the franchise kicker for the next 15 years, and maybe Carlson had that in him. I kind of doubt it, but I'm not willing to close the door to that. But the Packers needed a guy. It's like, we need someone we can trust more this year, even if we think, Greg Joseph probably is going to be the kicker of the future, the longtime kicker of the future for this team, right? So raising the floor, probably minimizing the ceiling a little bit and giving up on the idea of finding your forever kicker or, in the terms of, this era of Packers football, their forever kicker. Does that make sense? 608-321-1670. Rockin' Rick texts in. He says, thinking Brock Purdy was a backup. They were pretty fine. Were we just talking about backup quarterback? Yeah, I suppose. Rockin' Rick, I see your point. I don't know I don't know what I can do with that. I don't know how I can add. When we were talking about, Sean Clifford, Michael Pratt. Okay, so they found a quarterback that's a backup in the draft. It can be done. I'm just talking more about the way the Packers do business and, whether it is really what we think it is. So I appreciate the chime in. it's not irrelevant, but I also can't do much with it. But thank you for the text, Rock and Rick. Bobby in Menominee says, am I the only one who loved the 2013 season? My favorite out of 2010 and 2011. Is that the backup year? Yeah, you're probably the only one who loved it. Was that the Matt Flynn, Seneca Wallace? I don't even know. Yeah, you're the only one who loved it. Let me answer your question right there. You're the only one. Rick from Spencer says, hey, Grant, Peter Bukowski gave you some props this morning on Locked On Packers. I feel bad because I texted him yesterday and told him specifically to kiss my ass because Heartland Arrowhead beat his alma mater in football on Friday. It's not my alma mater. It's where I live. It's the team that I live closest to, and it beat Pete's team. So I texted him that and said, kiss my ass, Pete, and he didn't answer. So now I feel bad. Now I got to go listen. Thank you for sharing that, Rick. Damn it. Now I feel bad. I did tell him that. I did. Whoops. All right. Cone Roller says, our head football coach literally said he prays every time Anders Carlson went out there. No one should feel bad. Yeah. Look, Cone, I'm with you. I'm guilty of it too. I'm guilty of thinking, but he could turn into this. And if you actually look at Mason Crosby's numbers, he hit 80%. And it's stop. Set all of that to the side. Can you send him out there to kick a 31-yarder and trust that he's going to make it? No. Discussion's over. Can't be the kicker. I'm not saying it's ideal. I'm not saying I love Greg Joseph. I'm not saying I don't like going into the season with uncertainty a kicker. Put everything else to the side. You have a kicker that you cannot trust to hit an extra point. That's not okay. So, Cone Roller, to your point, yes. I think this is not a complicated conversation. If you have to pray when your kicker goes out there, he can't be your kicker. Thank you for adding that. That's good. Matt in Chippewa Falls, and then we'll take a break. It says, let Goody cook. With kicker, follow up. Tell me more, Matt. I'm curious. 608-321-1670. More of your thoughts. More of my thoughts, too. I'm the host. I should probably say a couple of things on the Packers roster cutdowns. Wisco Sports Show back after this.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
It's the Wisco Sports Show. We have so many different Packers things to react to. Started last night, the Malik Willis trade. I felt something for the first time in forever. Getting fired up, getting stirred up. I felt moved over a Packers conversation. We've been excited for the Packers all summer, right? Wow, look at all the talent they have at wide receiver. Look at the tight ends, Jordan Love, extension. But, I mean, now it's really starting to feel real. We finally got a couple things over the last few days to really sink our teeth into. The Malik Willis trade, the cutting of Anders Carlson, and a couple of the other roster decisions as well that we can get into. I don't know that there were any shockers. You may feel differently, and if so, please, 608-321-1670. Call or text. You can tweet at me at Wisco Grant 2. The live stream is up, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Everything's working good today, so you can comment on there. Maybe you were surprised by one of the decisions that Brian Gutekunst made today. I was not. I was watching Christian Welch. I was watching Grant Dubose. I thought, maybe. I thought maybe Grant Dubose, if they want to keep 7 wide receivers, could be an option. I don't think it's ever a good idea to keep 7 wide receivers, but they could have done that. I think because they have a couple of tight ends they really like, they were less likely than normal, and it's never likely to keep 7. It's only happened a time or two in recent history, and I don't think they've ever kept 7 under Goody. I think they did once under Ted not that long ago with Mike McCarthy, but that was the outlier. But Grant Dubose is the prototypical Packers wide receiver, strength, size, blocking, all the things that they look for. Bo Melton isn't. So I thought maybe, just maybe, it was a long shot, but I thought maybe. I think Grant Dubose is a candidate to be back on the practice squad. Same with Welch. He showed real mettle on defense and on special teams in the preseason. Long shot to make the roster, but I thought maybe. Anthony Johnson Jr. is one that Packers people seemed shocked by. They seemed genuinely shocked that Anthony Johnson Jr. didn't make the roster and Zane Anderson did. I don't mean to be all anti-Rich Bisaccia today, although I think he deserves some heat. This seems like a move and a roster choice made with special teams in mind. And I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. The 5th safety on the roster should be able to do more than play safety. That should be a player that contributes on special teams. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I spent an hour hosting for Bill earlier today talking about how Anders Carlson has been cut and Rich Bisaccia, in my opinion, the multi-million-dollar man, should have been able to do a little bit more with a kicker that was described. That was his guy. Now, I don't know that he banged the table to Brian Gutekunst to say, draft this guy. He's the guy that I want. But there was a connection there. They knew each other. The families had that was a partnership. That was a marriage that should have worked because the experience was there, but also because Rich Bisaccia is supposed to be really good at this as a special teams mind and as a special teams coordinator. And Anders Carlson got no better last year to this year. And I was saying earlier on Bill's show, it's like, well, this guy's making all this money. He was supposed to be the answer, and I still don't think the special teams are that good. And it's not because the Packers haven't dedicated resources to his units. They have. They've picked guys with the idea of special teams in the back of their mind. Right? I see it every year during the draft. People are like, there's a Rich Bisaccia player. There's a special teams, right? They have made roster decisions, keeping one guy over another with Rich Bisaccia's special teams in mind. And then hours later, I'm just looking at the evidence, trying to draw my own conclusions. How can you look at Zane Anderson over Anthony Johnson Jr. and not say, that's for special teams, that's for Rich Bisaccia? Right? So it just furthers my point. The Packers have given Rich Bisaccia the keys to the car. They've dedicated resources to his units. They've given him players. They've re-signed players and brought in free agents to help out on his units. They got the kicker that he wanted. They brought in his guy, and none of it has been that great. In fact, the kicker was a catastrophe. And if that kicker, who was probably a developmental project from the start because he wasn't that good in college, and by not good, there were others who were better, especially for drafting a kicker in the 5th round. If he would have gotten 15% better from last year to this year, he'd be on the roster. He'd be the kicker. The Packers didn't need him to become the best kicker in football. They needed him to become a little more consistent and reliable on the gimme field goals. And he didn't. So, not to quote the cliche line from Office Space, but Rich Bisaccia, what does he do here? I know he's the assistant head coach, and I think his voice carries weight in the locker room. I think he's a leader, and I think he's a coach. But his job description, the reason he was brought in was to coordinate the special teams. And he has taken them from a place where they're not a disaster anymore, although that took a little longer than I think it should have. But they're not great. I don't know that they're a strength of this team. They're just not the gaping catastrophe that they were in the final year under Mo Drayton, which was it Mo Drayton? Sean Menenga? Mo Drayton was an internal hire. I still can't believe that they did that. Special teams were awesome, so they canned the guy who was running them and promoted someone who was already there. How does that make sense? Special teams, just it shouldn't be that hard to get right. 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 I don't need Rich Bisaccia to turn Anders Carlson into an awesome kicker. I'd like to see him show that he can develop him a little bit. But even if you can't develop the kicker, okay, I want the punting and the punt coverage and the kicking and the kick coverage to be great. And those really also aren't all that great. So what is he getting paid for? This text from the 715 says, Packers have had better success choosing 3 straight quarterbacks than they've had 2 straight kickers. Yeah, I tweeted that on yesterday afternoon. During Bill's show, I said, watch, I'll tweet this. I've seen this tweeted 100 times. I'll tweet it and it'll blow up. Cheesehead Twitter, Packers Twitter will eat this up, even though I've seen it 100 times. I tweeted, and I want to make sure I read it correctly, simply amazing that the Packers had a harder time replacing Mason Crosby than they did replacing Aaron Rodgers. And I said on the air before I tweeted, I said, I'm going to tweet this to make a point. This is low-hanging fruit. Packers Twitter will eat it up. It had 1,000 likes in less than an hour, and now it has 4,900 likes. It'll be up to 5,000 by the end of the day. Packers Twitter. It's too easy, respectfully. Cone Roller, one more text, then we'll get to a phone call. It says, the show is cooking today. You could feel it. Yeah, it is. You can feel football is back. I said at the beginning, I said at 4 o'clock, strap in. This is going to be a good one. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Mike in Eau Claire.
Mike in Eau Claire. Hey, Mike. It's football season, so that means Mike in Eau Claire is back.
It's time.
It's time.
But even I'll just squash the kicker debate about Crosby and his 80%. They sent him out there to kick 55 to 65-yard field goals how many times over his career? He made a lot of them, but those are his misses. His misses aren't 30-yard field goals. Rarely does he miss a 30-yard field goal.
Who are you talking about now, just to make sure I have you? I'm following.
Mason Crosby.
Okay. Crosby. Continue. Okay, gotcha.
So, because you said there's an argument. I'm not on Twitter, so I don't see the argument.
Good for you.
But you were saying about how people were saying how Crosby kicked 80%. So why is Carlson so bad at 80%? That's the difference I was talking about. Most of Crosby's misses were from long range.
Yeah.
Super long range. A lot of them were.
Mike, I don't need Anders Carlson's percentage from last year. I watched all the games. I don't even know what the number is. I know he wasn't good. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to overcomplicate this. We don't need to nerd this up for no reason.
No, it's hard to find Vinatieri's don't come around every day. That's, the Justin Tuckers. That's why those teams pay those guys $5 million a year for a kicker.
Yeah.
That's rare.
It is
so
rare.
There's only a handful of teams that have a solid kicker like that.
So what are we going to do? Do we go with Greg Joseph? Is he the guy? I don't really want to go week by week with kicker. Like I don't know. I'm not saying he's the guy for the whole year, but God, I don't like the idea of going week to week.
I think they still, just like we picked up Malik Willis, they might pick up a kicker.
Sure.
I would think that they should. I used to kick, so I actually like kickers more than most people.
You have a soft spot for him.
Yeah, I do. I feel their pain. But
interesting.
They got to do better than Joseph. I would have rather them give Carl. I don't know if you flip a coin between Carlson and Joseph. They need something better than that. I don't want to come down to the NFC Championship game and have it come down to a kick.
Jesus,
and
that would suck.
That's I don't want that to happen. But hopefully our offense and defense is good enough it doesn't come down to a kick.
Well, that's the idea, right?
Yep, that's what we're going to do. That's the plan.
That's the thought. Okay, Mike, it is time. He's back. I think Mike up at Eau Claire for that one. I appreciate it. I think that was Gordon's point, Mike. I think you're with Gordon in lacrosse. It's like, well, if they're both the same, why not take the guy with possibly a little upside? And I don't disagree. I think that's a fine line of thinking. It's just I trust Greg Joseph more to hit the 30-yarder than I do Anders Carlson. I think maybe that's what it came down to. It's like, these guys seem like they're a horse apiece, but I kind of, for the most part, trust Greg Joseph to hit the gimmies. You can't trust Anders Carlson to hit the gimmies. We saw it on Saturday. It was just such a stark reminder. It just felt like a kick to the teeth watching him miss that kick. Matt in Chippewa Falls, on the topic of Goody cooking, says, I feel like Goody has a plan, releasing some of his draft picks just after a year or so. Ted wouldn't have cut them. I don't know about that. I feel like they don't want to waste Jordan's prime, like how they kind of wasted Rodgers. I don't know. It's nice in spirit. I don't know if it's true or false in actual application. Coyote Mike says, okay, if you got a few seconds before you sign off, if not, no biggie. How about the Brewers? What do you think about the San Francisco? 30 seconds on that, and then we're going to get to another call. I think the Brewers are so much better at home. I think the atmosphere at American Family Field for the rest of the home games this year is going to be awesome. And I'm going to hopefully get to a couple more games, either in the press box or as a fan. I think the crowds, I think the environment at AmFam is going to be awesome. And I think that does make a huge difference for this Brewers team. Logan Webb tonight should be a great litmus test. Because if the Brewers come out and shell Logan Webb tonight, I think that's just a further testament to the crowd, the environment there, the way that the Brewers play off of that crowd, and the way that they've been rolling really since they got out of that slump in July. So there's your 30-second half Brewer minute, I guess, 30-second Brewer minute. That'd be contradictory. Thank you, Coyote Mike. One more call, then let's take our break. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Big Ron.
Big Ron. Hey, Big Ron. I talked about this last week before I went, but you invited me to a happy hour last Friday night, and I got to see you. That was a blast and a half. Thank you again for that.
Thanks so much for coming, man.
Are you back out on the East Coast, or are you still in Milwaukee? Are you still in the good land?
No, I'm back. I came back Sunday, so I'm back in Jersey. And I'm sad because after that rant, I think I might have to return my Rich Bisaccia jersey.
You have okay, I know what you mean. I just last couple of years, like what? The special teams aren't garbage. We got that going for us, but I don't think that should take the number one paid special teams coordinator in the league to do. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And a lot of it's talent. I mean, Nixon is a good returner, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but hey, your texter that wanted some Brewers talk is going to get a little bit here. I'm excited for this series against the Giants, and if the season were to end right now, we'd be the 3 seed and we'd have to play the Braves, but we get them at home though for 3 games in the 3-game series. 3 games would be at home.
Mm-hmm.
But it's we need some help from the Dodgers. Play the Orioles tonight. The Orioles are a good team. We need the Orioles to step up and take a couple from the Dodgers here.
I'm going to check if Burns is going in this series or not. Let me look at the probables because I'll pay attention to that.
Yeah, we need some help from our old friend Corbin Burns. Yeah.
We do. Let's see here. Burns is on the mound tomorrow night versus Walker Buehler. Oh, this should be I'm going to watch some of this series. And it's great because they're late night games. So when the Brewer games are done, I'll just be able to throw these games on a legal, totally above board streaming service that I pay for. There will be no illegal streaming involved. Trust me, if anyone's listening.
Absolutely. All right, Grant. I'm out, dude. Have a good night. All right, take care.
You as well. Take care, Big Ron. And again, it was nice to see you last Friday. I know I was able to catch you and your lovely wife when you were in Madison last summer. I'm sure it was around this time of year when you were getting ready. I know Big Ron's got a son or a daughter at school at UW Madison, so he was in town. It was nice to see him. I don't know. Thank you for the invite. That was a fun happy hour last week. Yeah, I'm with you. I'll watch some of that series. Baltimore at Los Angeles this week. It's going to rip. Corbin Burns, Walker Buehler tomorrow night. Hell yeah. Tonight, Jack Flaherty. And that's on ESPN Plus. So which I don't pay for, but if I did, I could. I could if I paid for it. but I don't. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll come back, continue the Packers discussion, and maybe bring the Brewers into it a little bit as they pick up their series again tonight, or start their series back at home against the Giants. So that's worth talking about as well. 2 more segments, plenty to go still. It's the Wisco Sports Show. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. Appreciate everyone listening tonight. It feels like the show, we took a step tonight. We can really feel football returning. We're fired up in a way that we haven't been since, man, I don't even know. Last time the Cubs were in Milwaukee. The Brewers, I love talking about the Brewers. You know this. I probably love talking about the Brewers a little too much, for being honest. But this time of year, we kind of know who the Brewers are. We know Pat Murphy. There's not much left to discover. We're just watching games and reacting to games, and that's great, but that only moves the needle so much, right? These Packer transactions the last 24 hours, inject them into my veins. The trade for Malik Willis, such an inconsequential little thing. It's a 7th-round pick for a developmental quarterback that wasn't getting an opportunity. He's probably not any good. And yet we were reacting to it like, my God, I don't even know. Something important. I don't know. We reacted strongly, okay? Let's put it that way. And then today, Anders Carlson being released this morning, talking about that. And I've been underwhelmed with Rich Bisaccia. And I think today is the day where I finally am comfortable saying he's making a lot of money. The expectations were high. And I know he provides a lot of utility to the team in other ways, but he was hired as a special teams coordinator. Okay, if you're not going to manufacture some awesome plays on kickoffs and punts, fine. But then can you improve a kicker? Right? Like you need to show me tangible results somewhere. And some people on Twitter were giving me the business when I was tweeting about Rich Bisaccia earlier today. And they're like, well, remember how bad the special teams were before Rich Bisaccia got here? It's like, oh, okay. So if I get hired at my job and I replace someone who showed up to work 1 day a week, and then I show up to work 3 days a week, and my boss is like, hey, man, you're paid for 5 days, 40 hours a week. Well, remember the guy before me? Oh, okay. Yeah, but that's not really the point. So if you want to talk Anders Carlson, Rich Bisaccia, if you want to talk Malik Willis, who was acquired last night, or any other roster cuts, the Anthony Johnson Jr. cut was a little surprising. Zane Anderson kept instead, I assume, for Rich Bisaccia's special teams. Welch, just on the bubble, he was left out. Grant Dubose just on the bubble, left out. I would assume those two are probably prime candidates for the practice squad, as is either Michael Pratt and or Sean Clifford. Maybe both of them. We'll see. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Alexa, stop. Hey, it's Grant. The Mike, Uncle Packer.
Uncle Packer.
Yeah, you
What's
got
going
it
on?
kind of quick. I thought I'd wait longer.
No, not today. We're whipping through callers today.
Wow, that's awesome. Hey, I was at that Packer preseason game. I was a little disheartened that we didn't have any starters playing. Every year it changes a little bit. You know, it used to be the third game. You saw starters. Last year I saw starters, but it was still cool. It's still Lambeau, you know.
Yeah.
We were fishing up on Lake Michigan and took that Saturday morning to go down there, and it was a great experience. It was my grandson's first game, and you got to they were all out, you know, before practice. Before the game started, we got to see Van Ness right up close, and everybody was
He's a big
there.
dude, isn't he? Oof.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Good-looking guy, though. Handsome.
Yeah, they called him Hercules in college. Yeah, Rashawn Gary waved at him. You know, that was pretty cool. It was his birthday too, so it was a great experience for his 12th birthday. So
Cool.
it was well worth it. We caught some walleyes out on the lake and some big drum, which wow, it was like catching a muskie for him. You know, and
Sheephead.
we had a great weekend. Drum. I don't know. They're big, ugly fish.
They are. They look stupid as hell too, don't they?
A ton of these little ugly white perch, but anytime you're catching fish, it's awesome. It was a great weekend. We got all 4 seasons on Lake Michigan in a couple days. You know, it was it was nice to be out there.
Yeah, no kidding.
It was.
Where'd you fish out of on the Lake Michigan shore? I'm closer to this side of the state for the first time in forever. So now I'm trying to find some tributaries, some spots to fish along Lake Michigan this fall. I haven't even gotten started. Do you have any recs for me?
We went out of Ponto.
Okay.
And out a mile or so, you find my brother Jim taught me this. You go out and look for boats. go out and rush, figure out what they're doing, and kind of fish by them. That's what we've been doing for the last 9-10 years. And we figured out you got to troll with worm harnesses, and every once in a while you'll see your pole take off. You troll with some. It's just stuff you learn. There was a lot of musky fishers up there.
I bet.
It's great. It's just beautiful Wisconsin.
I'm trying to figure out. And Uncle Packer, I appreciate that. I got jammed phone lines tonight. I want to make sure I get a chance to get to everyone. I'm trying to find a river. I like fishing steelhead. I'm trying to find a river, a Lake Michigan tributary. I could go, like, Algoma's so far from me. Like, if I say 2 minutes, or 2 minutes, 2 hours, like, that can get me to about Manitowoc or a little bit farther. Is there anything south of Two Rivers, between Two Rivers and Milwaukee? I just want to fly fish for some steelhead this fall. I'm not a man of, I don't ask for a lot. I don't even need a boat. Port Washington, the water never seems big enough there. Turns into a creek after like 100 yards in from the harbor. Anyways, continue. Packers talk. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant's Mike in Portage.
Mike in Portage, you son of a gun. You were on the live stream saying, well, I don't want to give my take today because I don't want to repeat something that's already been said. Mike, only you can deliver your takes the way that you deliver your takes. Fire away. What do you got?
All right. First of all, the mustache is looking pristine tonight.
Well, thank you. Yours as well. Yours as well.
So I'll make it quick. Kicking battle. I think it was the right decision going with Joseph over Carlson, and it comes down to this. The mental preparation by Joseph. He's got the experience in the big games, in the clutch moments, and he also seems like a guy that once he makes a bad kick, he'll get over it and get ready for the next one. Carlson, he's so scatterbrained, and it seems to me like when you watch him after he misses the kick, he's down on himself on the sideline. So experience was what they went with, and it was the right call. Second part, Chris. I think he's going to be a good player. They're going to sign him to the practice squad. Hopefully he clears waivers, makes it to the practice squad, and he should work his way back into the roster. And I think it's only that unlimited ceiling going into his career. So I like what I've seen out of that guy, and I expect big things coming up out of him. So
I think so too. I think those are good takes. Your point on the kicking battle, and Mike, I appreciate it. I look forward to hearing on Over the Line this morning or tomorrow morning too. The mental battle is or the mental part of this is probably a good idea. Like Greg Joseph has gone through ups and downs as a kicker. He's had good years. He's had bad years. He knows what it's like to prepare for a game and be under the gun. So that's part of it too, right? We always talk about the devil you know, the devil you don't know. And the devil you know has been described as Anders Carlson. But we also have a bigger sample size as a pro with Greg Joseph. So is Greg Joseph the devil we don't know? Really, there are two devils that we know. And I think the Packers just liked the information that they knew about Greg Joseph a little bit more. One more caller, then we'll take our final break. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Ridge Runner Mark, how are we doing?
Ridge Runner Mark, it's been forever. I'm doing good. How about you?
Yeah. Good. Work is crazy. I work a slightly different shift, so a lot of times I don't get time to call in. By the time I'm in my car, it's around this time, so I just happen to luck out. Packer take. Wide receivers. I don't know who we all took and kept and didn't keep, which is fine, but my take or my question is, if the Packers are successful, will it be because we had a true, quote-unquote, number one wide receiver or a guy who did 1,000 yards and however many touchdowns, or more what we saw last year where every week it was another guy stepping up and doing awesome, and it was a different guy every week? I'm just curious to hear what you have to say on that concept. Which would be preferred? Which would lead to more success?
Well, I think for this team, what would lead to more success is the latter. Because do you have a guy like, if they tried to make Christian Watson the number one guy and they tried to get him over 1,000 yards, I don't know that would work real well. You know what I mean? That's not to say that I don't think Christian Watson has, no chance of being an elite number one wide receiver one day. He might. I don't think they should view any of these guys like that. I think it'll be better for attacking certain matchups and certain looks if they just kind of let the ball go where it's naturally going to go.
And they all have different. None of them are like what use a baseball term, 5-tool player. Like Christian Watson can take the top off a defense. He can get jump balls and he's got speed. But is he really a clean route runner? Can he go across the middle and make people miss? Dobbs probably can do that, but he's not taking the top off, and he's maybe not as tall. So you go back and forth with all these wide receivers, and none of them are 100%. They can do everything, and I want to feed them the ball as much as possible. They all have their niche, and just, depending on the week and the defense, one of them is going to probably shine a little bit more, I think.
I completely and totally agree. I think that's an excellent take. I agree. I just got to go, Ridge Runner Mark. I got to get my final break in. We'll talk more, hopefully, throughout the football season. I'm sorry to hear about your work schedule. I can't imagine your 9 to 5 and the thing that you use to put food on the table and get insurance and such taking precedent over calling a sports talk radio show, but it's your life choices, Ridge Runner Mark. Okay, you do what you think is best for you and your family. No, I don't think there is a number one wide receiver on this team. I think they're all really, really good. Maybe Watson develops into that. Maybe one of those guys, maybe Wicks turns into that. But right now, at this moment in time, I don't think that guy exists. So trying to force one of those guys to play that role, I don't think that would be worthwhile. I don't think that's smart. I don't think that's what's best. Let's put it that way. Let's take one final break. 3 minutes. We'll wrap up the Wisco Sports Show. Next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, final segment. I don't have much to say. Let's preview the Brewer game tonight. I think we covered just about every square inch of ground we could have possibly covered with Packers cutdowns today, and with the Malik Willis trade, and with Anders Carlson and Rich Bisaccia and all that jazz. So if you missed it, I think the show, and I said this at 4 o'clock, I said this is going to be a great show. Right. I don't just say that to say that. I can feel it. I can feel it in the air tonight. I could. So if you missed that, I highly recommend the podcast. You can go back and watch the stream as well. Bart Winkler was excellent. The Infinity Sports Network, you hear him 9 to 1 weeknights Central Time, and you can listen to his podcast, Into the Winklerverse, as well, which I believe I'm on tomorrow. We haven't discussed yet, but I think we normally do that on Wednesdays. The Brewers lineup is out. I just have one question, and I texted our friend Kurt about this, who was on the show last night, Kurt Hogue of the Journal Sentinel. And I told Kurt, it's like, look, I'm not texting you just to text you. I'm genuinely curious. Both Rhys Hoskins and Jake Bauers are in the lineup. And I don't understand that when they're both in the lineup, why Jake Bauers is the one, to DH and Rhys Hoskins is the one to play first. I just don't understand why, if you have the option in one game to put Jake Bauers at first defensively or to put Rhys Hoskins there, and both are in the lineup already. It's not a lineup choice. It's a positioning choice. I don't understand why he does this. He's done this a couple of times. He's done this throughout the summer. I don't know why. The lineup is Terang, Churio, Contreras, Bauers at cleanup, Adames 5. I like Adames in the 5 hole. I want to keep him there. If I guess tonight putting Jake Bauers in the 3 hole is what's required, then I guess that's the debt that all men pay. Center field, Blake Perkins. First base, Rhys Hoskins. Frelick and right. Ortiz at third. Tobias Myers is starting against Logan Webb. I'm interested to see the crowd tonight. I'm interested to hear it on my TV, what it sounds like, what it looks like, because I think home games at American Family Field the rest of the year are going to be rowdy. They're going to be lively. And I think the team feeds off of that. They've talked about it explicitly, openly. Freddie Peralta's talked about it. Pat Murphy's talked about it. So normally going into a game against Logan Webb, I wouldn't feel great about the Brewers' chances, but they're coming off an off day. I feel like their chances might be better than normal against Logan Webb, who's a pitcher that I'd normally pick to go like 6 or 7 scoreless against them. But maybe tonight is different. I think the crowd makes a big difference. I really think so. And I think the crowds in Ham the rest of the year are going to be hopping. I think they're going to be really, really, really good. So I look forward to that, what it looks like, what it sounds like tonight. Interested to see. And maybe I'll get an answer on why Murphy does this. Why put Hoskins at first base defensively if Bauers is in the lineup anyway? Jake Bauers doesn't need DH. Larry Hoskins. I just don't get it. Enjoy the podcast. If you missed Bart Winkler's interview, one of his best appearances